everybody, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. I'm Lauren. In this video, I am going to make these two nightstands absolutely unrecognizable. Let's get into the flip. These nightstands are 100% particle board. I can tell because when I open the drawers of the nightstands, they have like particle board or press board or MDF or whatever you want to call it. They are not solid wood, not even close to being solid wood, but they are still heavy. Those are heavy materials and they are still salvageable. And I think that that is really important to keep in mind, is not every single piece of furniture that is salvageable has to be a solid wood piece. They can still have good bones, but maybe just need a little bit of a different look and a little zhuzh and a little glow up. So that is exactly what I'm going to be doing with these. Like I said, they are going to be completely unrecognizable. I'm super excited about the design that I have for these already in my head. First things first, I am going to remove the hardware. They are a campaign style nightstand currently, but I am gonna change that. I am not a huge fan of the campaign style, especially when it's like, I don't know, like on this fake material. If it's a solid wood piece that's really high quality, that's a different story, but this to me just looks tacky. So I am gonna be removing the hardware as well as the corner pieces here to just start giving it that new look right off the bat. Interesting, there's a penny in there. Next order of business is to clean the tops of these. Well, really the whole things. The tops are the most dirty parts because they've, been in my shop for quite a while. I was trying to rack my brain again of how much I paid for these. I feel like it was maybe around like $50 on Facebook Marketplace. I remember going and picking them up, but I can't recall the exact price, but we'll go with $50. And they've just been sitting in here for the longest time. So I'm excited to get to work on these finally. I am using the Lily Moon Furniture Prep Cleaner for these nightstands. And I'm just gonna go ahead and douse them with this cleaner, and then I'll wipe everything off. I'll make sure to get the sides and the drawer fronts as well. I am noticing right now that there is water damage on the tops of these. So that is going to have to be addressed before we move on to like priming and things like that. But basically what will happen is I will sand down the bubbled up areas to make them flat, and then we'll fill that in with Bondo to make sure that everything is nice and smooth. And then we'll prime and paint and everything will be good as new and it'll hold up really nice. These are quite dirty. Next, I am gonna be tackling the tops especially, but of course I will also be working my way down the sides as well. But I am going to start scuff sanding, but as I said before, the tops do have a bit of some water damage, and it's probably kind of harder to see on camera, but it is there. There's a lot of texture, and this is very, very typical when it comes to pieces that are made from things like particle board, press board, or MDF. The water just, it's not sealed. The pieces aren't sealed, and if there is water, it starts to seep down into the material, and then it starts to expand and bubble up. And so my first step is going to be taking a 120 grit sandpaper here, and I am just going to be smoothing out the top as much as possible. So I'm going to really focus on the areas that are raised and bubbled up, and then I am going to just continue to smooth it out. It will start to chip away at the this wood sticker that's on the top here. This is not real wood. This is totally like a paper sticker or something. And that's okay. That's actually what we need to happen in order to repair it. So stick with me here. I'm going to show you exactly how to repair these water damaged tops. I am using my 3x4 Surf Prep sander. You don't have to have this to flip furniture. However, if you are looking to invest in your business, this is probably my top tool that I would suggest investing in. You have to have some type of electric sander, in my opinion, if you are going to flip furniture. It's just gonna make everything go so much faster, but also get the job done correctly. And this sander changes the game like crazy. Okay, so I went ahead and sanded down just the top here, and you can see the spots a lot better now that had that water damage. So it's like these spots with lighter, I guess, particle board areas, and then all the way back along here. That is just totally water damaged, and I did go ahead and kind of smooth it all out. I may need to do one more round of a little bit of sanding, and then we'll fill those in with Bondo. Everything is sanded down as far as the bodies go. The drawers don't need any repairs. I am gonna fill in the hardware holes, but that is a whole nother beast, so I'm gonna wait a second to do that. And I'm gonna get going on the Bondo for mostly the tops. There's a little bit of damages on the sides of one of them, but mostly we're looking around the edges and on the tops here. There's a few little nicks. And then I am gonna be using Bondo to go ahead and fill in these areas. Now, I'm not necessarily looking to cover the entire top or anything. The primer will be the key here, and I'll show you exactly what primer you need to use for this specific purpose. There's one and only primer that you can use on this to get the job done correctly, so that we don't have more water damage in the future. So I am taking some of the Bondo that's in the can and putting it onto a cardboard piece. And I just like to cut up old boxes for this. You can also use really whatever you want to mix your Bondo on, but I've got a little bit there, and then it comes with the cream hardener, and that will just be squeezed onto the same little piece here. And then once you begin to mix it together, it will begin to harden up. So you kind of want to work a little bit quick here so that your Bondo does not get wasted. So once it is all one color, that means that it's ready to be applied to the surface here. So I'm gonna just do thin layers around where we had the water damage. Chances are you will sand this smooth and there won't be a ton of Bondo left over, but this is just in case so that we can fill in any of those like open particle board areas in case there's any open pores. And then if there are any areas of damage, like there's a damaged area right here on the corner that I am going to really pay attention to. I'm just going to put a little bit of extra Bondo right there. And then I'm also going to be Bondoing where those old corners were. There were those like little nail holes, and you want to make sure those are filled in as well. And then back along the edge here, there's also a few areas where the particle board is kind of cracking and coming off. So I'm just going to fill that in with my Bondo as well. And once this Bondo starts to harden up, I will come back with my sander and smooth everything out. Before I move on to sanding the Bondo, I am going to be modifying the shape of these just a little bit, and that entails me removing the base down below. So I'm gonna flip this on its top and we're gonna see what we're working with. I know that I want to go ahead and remove the base, and that may include me taking out my saw because I think the side panels are all one piece of plywood or particle board or whatever this is. So I may need to go ahead and take that off with my saw. So looks like this front piece is connected to the sides and the bottom with like these little pieces of wood and then some staples. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that, and then yeah, the side pieces are all one panel, so I'm gonna have to use my circular saw and cut those right off. I got that front piece off, and then there were just like those little pieces that the staples were attached to make sure that they were all attached right. And I got those off. I thought that that would be easier for me to saw this off and not having to like go through those staples and stuff. So just a little bit of extra elbow grease, but now I'm ready to cut, and I'm gonna tape off the area that I want to cut off. So the painter's tape just is gonna serve as a guide, but then I'm also hoping that if I put it on the side that's staying on the piece, then it will help mitigate any like major splintering or splitting of the particle board. So we're just gonna go from front to back, and I am just going to be going based off of the bottom portion here and then back here, and then I'll probably measure just to be safe as well to make sure that it's like the same all the way across too. All right, we're in business. That was a good straight line. Now that is the exact line that I'm gonna use my miter or my circular saw for. So here are the two nightstands now. They are basically just two boxes. Remember, and I'm reminding myself that it always looks worse before it looks better. I promise you that my design is going to be so worth all of this work, and I cannot wait to show you what I've got in store. Next, I am going to be smoothing out all of the Bondo, and then we can finally move on to primer. It's time to prime, and I went ahead and put these up top here so that I would have just a little bit of an easier time reaching all of the nightstands. I also went ahead and sanded everything, made sure that the drawers were also scuff sanded, so everything is ready and we're ready to prime with this specific primer that I talked about earlier. And because these are particle board, this is the only primer that is going to work because it is oil-based or shellac-based, which means that it's going to give a layer of coating that is not going to seep into the particle board that's kind of exposed. If we put water-based products on this, it's just going to open back up and begin to kind of expand again, and this is what we want to avoid. So we can't just go ahead and put water-based primer or paint directly over the top. I am gonna be showing you the Bin shellac-based primer. This is a primer that you can use pretty much on any project. The reason that I've kind of come away from using this is simply because I like to use it in my spray gun. But again, I did show you all the Bin Advanced, but that is a water-based, so that's why I'm switching back to this for this project specifically. The Bin Advanced does work on everything else though, so that's kind of my changed out primer that I really love. This shellac base is going to be a little bit trickier to get out of your sprayer and things like that, so what I like to do is roll it on instead. So I am going to dump a bit of this primer that I've already mixed up really well, and I'm going to dump it into this roller tray that I've lined with foil so that it's going to be super easy to clean up. I'll most likely end up doing a couple coats of this, so the roller tray lined with foil just makes sure that, you know, it all stays and it doesn't get the tray dirty, but I can just dispose of the foil and the roller head after I'm finished up with this primer. 2 coats of primer everywhere, I am going to move on to figuring out what I want to do on the drawer fronts. Now, I did have an idea originally to put some leftover cane on the fronts of them, but that would require me to fill in these big, huge holes, which is doable. I would just fill them in with some like wood scraps and then Bondo them. But I wanted to see if I could come up with another way to fill in these areas. And what I think I'm going to do is take some half round dowels and then cut them to size, and then we'll place them inside of these areas like so, and it'll be all the way across, and then that'll give it a little bit of a unique design. The only thing that I am not sure about if I want to do or not is to paint them the same color that I'm gonna paint the entire nightstands, or if I want to leave them raw wood to be like a little bit of a contrast, if you will, or I can leave them wood but also potentially stain them a darker color. So what I think I'm gonna do is do a coat 1 of paint first, and that way I can get the color on there, let that start drying, and then I'll cut all of these to size and kind of place them in there to see if I like that contrast, or to see if I like them stained, or to see if it would just look better overall if I painted them the right color. So let's get the first coat of paint on these and then we'll go from there. I am gonna be filling up my HomeRite Super Finish Max sprayer here, and I am gonna use the color Cactus by Dixie Belle in their silk paint line. This one is the last of the 3 colors that I have just been really wanting to use lately, and that I've kind of been interacting with you guys over on Instagram with. This has been super fun. First I used the, I believe it was called Glacier, and then I used Smoky Mountains, and now I am using Cactus. This is like a nice sage green color, so I think that this is going to be perfect for the design, and green typically sells pretty well, especially I think with nightstands. I've been doing a lot of blue nightstands and those have gone pretty quick, but kind of excited to see how the green does with nightstands. So I'm gonna go ahead and dump this into my sprayer, and then I'm also gonna be adding a bit of water because the silk paint does do better with just a little bit of water added in to kind of thin it out and help it go through the sprayer just a bit better. So I just put a little tiny bit of water, a couple ounces of water into the existing paint can, and then I'm putting the lid back on, and then I'm gonna shake it up a bit. This will cause some bubbles, which isn't ideal for the sprayer. It'll go through the strainer, so it should be okay, but this is gonna help get a lot more of that paint off of the sides of the container that the paint was in, and then I'm gonna just dump it in there, and then it will thin out the paint quite a bit so that it'll go through the sprayer really nicely. have the one piece of fluting that I am going to do with this half round dowels cut to size. So I actually also have some half round dowels that I used on a previous project that I got too much of. And so now I'm only gonna hope that this is enough to put inside of all 4 drawers, or else I'm going to have to go and get another like some more of the half round dowels. But my goal is to just use this up so that way, you know, it doesn't go to waste, but also don't really want to go purchase more. So we're gonna cross our fingers that we've got enough here. And basically all I'm gonna do is cut this to size a whole bunch of times, basically however many times it takes to get the whole entire drawer full of the dowels. I like to try and make this as easy as possible, so what I'm gonna do is measure out how long this piece is, and then I am putting a little marker on my miter saw platform here, and that's where I will line this up each time to go ahead and just cut, 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 so I don't have to worry about like measuring each and every time. Okay, so far I got 8. I know it's gonna take way more than 8 to fill those, so I think I've got like 4 more long pieces. We'll see. So I just fitted one drawer with some dowels, and it looks like there's about 31 that fit in there, and I counted up the rest of the dowels, and I am honestly about 30 short, so like 1 drawer short, which is a real bummer because like I said, I was not trying to go back to the hardware store to purchase more dowels. I was really trying to use these up, but it is what it is. I think I'm gonna have to get, I don't know if it's 1 or 2 more of the long pieces, but these are about 5 1/8 inch. So I'll just have to do some math and make sure that I've got enough so that I don't have to go back again. But then also I don't want to get too much because then I'll have too much. So I'm gonna head to the hardware store, grab a dowel, and then we'll come back, cut the rest. I kind of am liking it with the raw wood, but the pine is pretty yellowy. So I still haven't decided. Stay tuned to see if I decide to go all green or a darker stain or keep it the lighter wood. We'll see. I went ahead and got the other dowels and I got them all cut to size. So now we've got several dowels, and I have decided, I think, on a final decision for the dowels, and I think that I am going to leave them the raw wood color, but the pine is a bit too yellow for me, and so I am going to still do a paint wash on these. And there is, like, when you get pine or really any wood from the hardware store, there's almost like a coating that they put over the top of it. And so if I were to just go ahead and like either stain this or put the paint wash on immediately, it would not really soak in very well. It'd probably be pretty blotchy. So what I'm gonna do is actually take some sandpaper and just file it down a bit, roughen it up, I guess, if you will, and kind of get rid of that coating. And then my paint wash will be able to soak in a little bit, and then that will really help eliminate the yellowness in the pine. So I've got quite a few little dowels to do this with, but I'm just gonna go to town. In hindsight, I think I would have just sanded each long piece down, and that would have been a lot simpler because it's easier to hold a longer piece of wood. But here we are. So I am going to just get to work and go to town sanding these dowels. Now that I got all of the pine wooden dowels sanded down, I am going to move on to the legs that I am also going to be putting on the bottoms of these nightstands. I thought that these were really neat legs. I got them on Amazon. I intended to use them on a previous flip like a long time ago, and I didn't end up using them, so I had these in my stash. I've got 2 sets of 4, and they come already finished, so there is a sealer over these, but it's similar to these pine ones where it was like too yellowy for my taste and for the look that I want on these pieces. So what I'm gonna do is sand them down, and I already sanded down a couple, and you can kind of tell the difference to where this one is not so yellowy. And I'll do the same paint wash on these raw legs as I am going to on the pine legs. That way they really are cohesive and they match up really nicely. So what I'm using is my Surf Prep sander with the sponge foam abrasive, and it is going to just really easily and simply get the curves of this all sanded down without flattening anything out. So that's what I'm gonna work on now. I've got, I think, 6 more legs to do, and then we'll move on to that paint wash. Got that second coat of paint on, and these are looking really good. And also all of the dowels are now paint washed and dry. So I figured it would be a perfect time, since we're done with the painting, to go ahead and glue on all of the dowels. The paint wash went on really well. I guess it wasn't technically a paint wash. I did use the gel stain from Lily Moon Paint, but it's very similar to a paint wash. It was just the color that I used kind of dulled down that yellow look a lot. And then it does have a top coat built into there, so we should be good to go as far as the protection goes. What I'm gonna do is take a little bit of wood glue and put it onto the areas that I'm gonna be putting these dowels. I'm not gonna put too much because they should fit right into the spots, so I shouldn't need a ton of glue. That's the only way that I'm gonna have them attach. I'm not gonna do any like nails or anything like that. We should be good with wood glue because wood glue is a very strong glue, and it should hold these on really nicely. That looks really good. All right, time for the rest of the drawers. There are 3 left. Aha, this looks so good. And they are totally snug in there. I don't know how I lucked out to where 31 exactly fit, to where I didn't have to cut any or you know, have any sort of gaps on the ends. I really, really lucked out. That does not always happen. But let's do the next one. My next step is to attach the legs to the bottoms. I wanted to do one off camera just to make sure that I knew what I was doing and that my idea was gonna go to plan, and it totally did. So these legs come on Amazon, like I said, and then they have two parts. They have the leg portion, and then they have the portion that you connect it onto the actual piece of furniture with. Now this can get a little bit confusing, but just remember, whenever you see a leg attachment like this part is the part where the leg screws into this way. So you are going to need to make a hole in the bottom of your piece of furniture that can fit this up into the surface of the piece. So that way it gets a lot more stabilization and sturdiness than it would if you put it like this and screwed this in like that. Then there would be this gap right here when you screwed the leg in, and it just would not be sturdy at all. So what I'm doing is I'm using a drill bit that is the same width as this hole here, or this portion that goes up into the nightstand bottom, and I put a piece of tape on here so that I don't go through the bottom of it. If I went through the bottom of, or if like I went past this mark, I would be going through the bottom of the nightstand, and then we would have a hole in the bottom of the nightstand, and we don't want that. So I went ahead and marked all of the spots. I did 2 inches in and 2 inches down from each corner, and that way I have the same measurements everywhere. And then I am just gonna use this to drill into the bottom of the nightstand, and then the hole, the bottom of the mechanism that goes into the bottom here will slide right in, and then we'll screw it in with 3 screws. I do believe this is the last step. I got those legs all installed, and I am loving the, like, it turned out, the legs turned out way better than I even imagined. So this is the last step here to install the new hardware. I am gonna go with just a single knob, and it is a champagne bronze color, and I'm just gonna go right in the middle there. So I'm gonna make sure to measure out the exact middle, and we'll make some holes on all 4 drawers, and then we will have 2 brand new nightstands. Luckily, I have 31 dowels, and so the middle is the 16th one, and then the 15 and 15 on each side. Now, really, I just need to make sure that I am in the middle of the drawer up and down wise, and then we should be good to go. Oh. Guess I need to re-glue that dowel on. Holy cow, I cannot believe the transformation of these nightstands. Remember, we started out with the campaign style, totally particle board with like the sticker that looks like wood that truly isn't wood on the entire surface. This part was indented. It had the campaign style hardware pieces that were inset in the drawers, and the bases were just those generic flat bases. And you guys, this transformation, I had a little bit of something different in my mind, but this actually came out better than I thought it was going to. I cannot wait to get these listed on Facebook Marketplace. I think they're gonna go pretty quick. Let's talk about the numbers of this pair of nightstands. So my original buy-in for these was about $50, and then I did have several costs to make them look like what they look like now. And sometimes that's just what it takes to make the pieces unrecognizable, which was definitely what was done on these 2 nightstands. So the primer costs about $10. The paint costs about $25, and the dowels on the fronts here, I had some of them, but I did still want to account for the entire cost of the dowels, which is around $40 to get as many as I needed. The hardware cost for 4 of them was about $10. The legs I already had on hand again, but I checked my Amazon order from years back when I actually purchased these legs, and they were only $30 for the set of 8. So I'll link those down below along with everything else, but those legs are a super good deal for solid wood sturdy legs. And then miscellaneous costs, I always like to factor in things like sandpaper. I did put some drawer liner in there, as you saw, and then like the plastic to wrap the pieces of furniture, just different things like that also needs to be accounted for. So that gives us a total of $175 in total that I spent on these pieces of furniture, which for nightstands, that feels like maybe a little bit on the higher side, and I didn't have to spend that much money. Again, it didn't technically feel like I spent that much money because I had a lot of these things on hand already, and I'm just using up things, so I may have accounted those costs in other projects, but I just want to give you a full transparency look at what it might cost if you were to replicate this look on something that you have. And I am planning on listing these nightstands about $450. They are on the smaller side still, and then they are still made of particle board. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are less valuable though, in my opinion. So you've got to also market the look of them. Now they are really nice, solid. Just because they're particle board does not mean that they're not solid. So keeping that in mind, they all work really, really nice. The drawers slide really well. So if we can sell them for $450, that would give me a total profit of $275. This was a super fun flip. I hope you enjoyed following along on the entire process. I love seeing my vision come to life. Sometimes I don't have a full vision ahead of time, and I'm kind of of just going step by step. But on these, I had a vision and it totally came out even better than I would have imagined. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, everything is linked down below in the description. I'll be back with another video for next Thursday, and I'll see you on the flip side.